Shinsou wasn't very popular. He kept to himself, and most of his classmates avoided him on account of his scary quirk. For obvious reasons, he'd never had a girlfriend. In fact, the thought had never really crossed his mind. He wasn't used to people and never got close enough to anyone to truly like them, and was convinced he would scare off any potential girlfriends. Anyway, he was a loner, and the recognition he got in the sports festival seemed to only make people more afraid of him. So, naturally, he was taken aback when you sought after him at lunch. On the day classes resumed after the festival, you were from Class 1A and had caught his eye during the festival with your skill and quirk. Never in a million years did he expect to speak to you in passing, much less have you come looking for a conversation with him and remembering his name.
Hey, you're Shinsou Hitoshi.
Shinsou turned his head in the direction of the voice, looking up to see you standing beside him, a sweet smile on her face. At first, he was hesitant to reply, unsure of your intentions, but the look on your face seemed truly genuine. Yeah, you're YN, right? He knew exactly who you were, but did not want to come off as strange. You nodded.
That's me. Mind if I sit?
His dark eyes widened in surprise, but he smiled back at you and nodded. You'd gushed about how impressed you were by him during the festival and how cool his quirk was. He didn't know what to say or think, still shocked that you weren't scared of him.
It's crazy how helpful a quirk like that would be as a hero. I'm jealous. You make my quirk seem boring.
You'd gushed, your eyes bright and glowing with excitement.
You could get villains without having to lift a finger. Isn't that amazing?
Shinsou smiled softly at you in response, overwhelmingly happy that someone talked about his quirk and didn't talk about him, using it for villainous reasons. From that day on, you'd made a point to sit with Shinsou or bring him to sit with you and your friends. And though they didn't really talk to him, you didn't care. You'd meet him between classes when you got the chance and asked him about his studies. You even offered to train with him to help him get stronger physically, to increase his chances of being in the hero course. It took a long time for him to get used to her presence, but it was comforting. He never stopped finding it hard to believe that someone like you took such an interest in him, and though he couldn't deny his growing feelings for you, he wouldn't risk trying to take things further. You being his friend was more than he could have ever dreamed of. He wouldn't ask for anything more from you. He was oblivious to your feelings for him, and no matter how obvious he tried to make it, he shrugged them off as him reading too far into things. No matter how many comments his classmates made about it, or how many times your friends asked if he was your boyfriend, he refused to consider the possibility. It became painfully obvious to you that you'd have to make the first move and be as clear as you could possibly be. Even if he didn't return your feelings, you wanted to make it known for him just how amazing he was, since he didn't see it himself. After a sparring match, you had invited Shinsou back to your dorm to eat takeout and relax. He had a big test that he'd been relentlessly studying for, and you insisted that he take a break and relax just for a little while, and of course he gave in to your pleading eyes. The two of you were sitting side by side on the floor with a pile of pillows, watching YouTube on your laptop, when you decided to confess. Shinsou, you know, I mean it when I say flirtatious stuff, right? It's not a joke. The poor boy almost choked in his soba, quickly swallowing and staring at you with wide eyes. What? I know you heard what I said, he replied, staring up at him with a calm expression which completely contradicted the deep blush painting your cheeks. You like me? Shinsou asked as he stared intently at your face, trying to see if you were pulling some kind of joke. But that wasn't something you'd do, and he knew it. He just couldn't believe this was real. Yes, Shinsou, I like you. As in, I am romantically interested in you, he explained. He was so smart, yet so oblivious. Do you want to be my boyfriend? If not, it's perfectly fine. What? Of course I'd love to be your boyfriend. Sorry, I'm just taking this all in, he replied, trailing off at the end. You laughed and hugged him, and eventually he regained his composure and finished eating his food. He stared at you the entire time he was there, his dark unusual eyes twinkling with adoration. You were his girlfriend? Who would have thought? No one at school was particularly surprised, but Shinsou's classmates constantly whispered about the two of them. What was a girl like YN doing with Shinsou Hitoshi? Someone in his class even asked if he'd brainwashed her into dating him. Despite how giddy Shinsou was over the relationship, that particular comment made his mood drop. He'd responded with a better no, and remained quiet the rest of the day. Once you got the wind of it, you found the person who said it, and made sure they left your boyfriend alone from then on, and kept their nose out of your relationship. You also made it a point to make sure everyone knew how highly you thought of Shinsou, and how much of an amazing boyfriend he was. Your friends began to warm up to him, still wary of his quirk, but more so impressed with how happy you were with him. People still whispered, of course, but gradually, Shinsou began to ignore them. He knew you were absolutely out of his league, in everyone's eyes, but yours. And sometimes, he wondered what exactly you saw in him, but you always made sure to let him know how much you cared for him. Not a day passed that you didn't tell him how talented he was, how proud of him you were, and how lucky you were to be his girlfriend. You could not have been happier. You brought sunshine and positivity to his life, and were the first person to openly have faith in him and see that he was a good person. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect someone as perfect as you to come into his life and love him. He was convinced he was undeserving of you, no matter how much you protested. But regardless, he was happy and hoped he would get to you by your side forever, falling asleep and waking up with you as his girlfriend was better than any of his dreams, and it was the highlight of his day. Every day, you almost always fell asleep first, and before you did, you made sure to tell him, "I love you, Hitoshi." He'd look down at you with a soft, loving expression. "I love you too, YN." It was a routine. Neither of you let the other fall asleep without saying "I love you," even if you didn't manage to sneak into the other's arm and had to say it over the phone. Shinsou still wasn't the most well-liked guy at UA, but as long as he had you, it didn't matter to him in the slightest.